I'm Mindy Littman Holland, and I'm the author of Catskill Murder Mystery. Some of you are familiar with the Catskills, and some of you aren't. If you grew up in the New York area in the 50s, 60s, 70s, then you're probably aware that the Catskills was New York's playground, and it was a wonderful place to be. I'm going to read a chapter from this book. It's based on my own experience as a cocktail waitress in one of the major Borscht Belt resorts in 1973. And don't get alarmed, I'm a fast reader and my chapters are short. So here is chapter 1 of Catskill Murder Mystery, after I put these on because I am a child of the 70s. In the beginning, there were only 4 of us sharing a cabin. Susie Finnegan from Binghamton, New York, Clarice O'Hare from Dallas, Texas, Mary Ann Dunn from Chatham, Massachusetts, and me, Amy Bernstein from Manhasset, New York. It wasn't until later in the summer that Rita Connolly joined us, and we had no idea where she was coming from. All we knew was that she wore a wig, was a grown woman in her 30s, and had a boyfriend named Rocco. The rest of us were still in our teens. We were all a little afraid of Rita, and a lot afraid of her boyfriend's name, but we kept our worries to ourselves because we had other things to concern ourselves with. Susie of Binghamton was a sweet parochial school graduate and a natural blonde. She looked like a wholesome cheerleader. How she made her way into the Borscht Belt, I have no idea, but there was going to be plenty of trouble for her to get into in the Catskills. Clarice of Dallas was also a parochial school graduate. She was very thin and wore her hair in a flip, a pretty girl who had a premonition of dying in a fiery car crash. She also seemed to have an eating disorder. It was going to be interesting to see how she handled capon and kasha in a kosher resort all summer. Susie and Clarice slept on the side of the cabin that was closest to the bathroom. That was going to be very convenient because both of them were going to become world-class drinkers that summer. And they were both going to lose their virginity to much older men who worked at the resort and preyed on young, innocent women. Mary Ann and I had beds on the wall opposite Susie and Clarice's. Mary Ann may or may not have been a virgin. She looked like a young Katharine Hepburn, and she told me that she was bisexual. Mary Ann's cot and my cot were only a few inches apart. I wasn't a virgin, but I wasn't bisexual either. So when Mary Ann wasn't looking, I moved my bed a few more inches away. I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Mary Ann ended up with a man that summer anyway, a much older man named Louis. She would have been better off with someone who treated her better and who wasn't already balding, as would have Susie and Clarice. But that's neither here nor there. They paired off with their golf pros and health club managers and maitre d's and didn't ask my opinion. We were all cocktail waitresses at Hoffman's that summer in 1973. Most of us had never been away from home before, except to go to school. I had worked at a summer camp in the Catskills the previous summer and had gone to college in Boston the winter before. I was a slender but busty, long-legged, dark, curly-haired, green-eyed girl from Long Island. I had been with plenty of young men and a few older ones. One was a tax attorney who gave me little gifts like Snoopy pins and charm bracelets. He was one of the many men I had met at Hoffman's. I believe he was there for a singles weekend, but we weren't meant to be. None of us were meant to be who we were with that summer. We were just young women in training. I ended up with a Jewish guy from Flatbush with a big afro and a Brooklyn accent. His name was Mark Tallman. We were the real deal for a while, and I remember him fondly. On nights I didn't have to work in the nightclub or lounge, he and I worked backstage together. He moved sets around and I put makeup on comedians and singers, which is funny because I didn't wear any makeup personally, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Mark and I had some good times together, and maybe we could have made it beyond the summer, but I was heading back to Boston in the fall, and he was heading elsewhere, and those were the years when settling down with one man didn't seem probable yet. I wasn't exactly going around Sue, no offense to Susie, but I had a few wild oats to sow. And Mark tended to make women pregnant, lots of women, so that wasn't going to work for either one of us. But that season was wonderful, even with all the caterwauling coming from the beds that were inches apart as we all brazenly engaged with our boys of summer. Apparently, we had no shame. It was great fun until Rita showed up one day and scared us all straight with her wig and her age and her Rocco. Rita didn't say much. She occupied the 5th bed in the cabin, but never slept in it. She worked in the nightclub and the cocktail lounge, and then we guess she took her earnings home to Rocco, wherever he was. Sadly, she may have occasionally left with our tips in her wallet, But we didn't say anything because we were young and scared. We just stopped keeping our money in the chest of drawers between Clarice and Rita's beds. We were intimidated, but we weren't stupid. We worked hard for those tips. And while we feared that Rita would get into trouble with her boyfriend if she didn't bring home a big score, we weren't working for our health. Far from it. Hoffman's was an exciting place to work. It was a fun place to work. It was even a lucrative place to work. But it was not a healthy place to work. We got blood blisters on our feet and kidney infections and unplanned pregnancies. We all worked very long hours and staggered around in skimpy outfits and stilettos until the wee hours. We frequently went out for roast pork on garlic bread at 4 a.m. to wind down before hitting the sack as the sun rose. Whatever our condition, we all made it back to the cabin eventually. Except for Rita. One day she knocked off work and disappeared. And that's the first chapter of Catskill Murder Mystery. Do you need to have had experience in the Catskills to enjoy and appreciate this book? No, but it wouldn't hurt. Enjoy, everyone.